It is February 13th, 2020. I am at the facilitating venue of Upland Library in Upland, California. And what I have been documenting is the ongoing occurrence, the ceaseless engagement in P.O.C, specifically by third parties. The state is present by flying over and around this library. The light activity, which has also been captured, that is nonverbal communication, one of the means by which they engage in. They also engage in it through the use of clamor, and by they I mean the third parties that are surrounding, acting in concert with the state. That is also stalking via law enforcement, substitution by fire and ambulance through the sound of sirens that surround this building as well. And that was also documented as well inside of the facilitating venue today specifically, but this is part of the P.O.C. Specifically here in the library. And again, the factual circumstances at play are what are exploited in order to engage in the P.O.C. Today, specifically, the images that I just captured between 2:52 and 2:54 p.m., those are relative to where I'm seated at the library on the first floor, where again light activity is present, where it is being directed inside of this library, and it's improbable light activity based on the position of the sun south of Euclid Avenue, south of the north end of Euclid, where this library is located, and basically the sun is directing straight down into the building. This is for purposes of the ongoing search and monitoring. The third parties that I have surrounding me are engaged in relevant positioning, and they do so. Specifically, the last image taken at 2:44, that is an example of the third parties that engage in constantly standing around, and that which is positioning, that's also crossing paths. Standing behind, standing in front, standing beside, walking next to in relevant positioning, sitting behind. So in a library, much like in a cafe or in any place, even in a grocery store, you have to stand in line. That's relevant positioning. They are engaged in P.O.C. In the cafe, you can sit down. You are in relevant positioning. Here in the library, they sit down anywhere, and you are always surrounded necessarily by third parties. What I'm showing is the ways in which they are engaging in P.O.C. The third parties that I captured in those images, specifically the one standing behind me, that is a direct example of P.O.C. right there. Relevant positioning, communication device visible in hand. However, they are also engaging in it. The third party that I captured at 2:53, which would be to my right. I stood up to take an image of that female. She's engaged in P.O.C. That is actually patrolling conduct, where she was walking one way, then she turned around and walked the other. It is aimless meandering for the purpose of engaging in relevant positioning pursuant to the ongoing search and monitoring. And again, the state is present outside of this building via aircraft and surrounding driving past, audibly perceived by sirens. Third-party employees and third-party patrons alike engaged in concerted activity with that state that is engaged in stalking and harassment and monitoring. All relevants are present inside of this facilitating venue as well, including the harassment element and the third parties that, again, I just captured. It's relevant to where I sit, so the staircase as well, as they are engaged in walking up and down, using it as nonverbal as well, relative and simultaneity to my movement, to my activity, also engaging in relevant positioning in doing so. I took an image of that, and I took an image of the third parties that are not only surrounding me, that is positioning, but they are also engaging in systematic crossing path. And again, it's relative to where I'm sitting, so you have the third parties that are surrounding, engaging in the P.O.C. Here, while I am active on a communication device, the Chromebook. This is the library's laptop that I'm using. In addition to my phones, that is what they are focused on. Again, monitoring is pursuant the ongoing search for electronic information and communication device. And so consistent with the same elements that remain present in every other facilitating venue, what I am showing is the ways in which it's executed. It is the exact same patterns. What I'm showing is what they're doing inside of here today. These are third-party outsiders. These are strangers engaging in identical behavioral patterns centered on targeting me, the targeted individual, on behalf of and in concert with the state that's engaged in ceaseless stalking, harassment, and monitoring. And that's what my images are an example of, showing the ways in which they are circling around and surrounding targeting me and my communication devices, constantly monitoring in order to seek out, search for electronic information, and so that's pursuant to the ongoing search. The sound of, that's just one example of nonverbal communication. That particular use it occurs with simultaneity to my movement of my foot, movement of my mouth, focus of my eyesight on something. Mere repetition of that same element is no deviation from that which is P.O.C. It occurs in simultaneity with what I'm doing, but that is not the only form. But when you are engaged in that which is a matter of public corruption, it is very simple, as I've already shown, to engage in nonverbal communication. You can engage in nonverbal communication by talking as well. So there are a plethora of manners that they can do that, and that is what they do. What I'm showing is the ways in which it is manifest right now. Today is February 13, 2020. I'm inside of the library, and again, I've also captured the ways in which they are seeking to also disturb my use of the communication devices, which I also take images of. And so again, that's also evident of what is occurring as I speak. And again, this is also relevant to invasion of privacy. Not only are they engaged in P.O.C., but they listen and are very aware of everything that that I document with regard to the third parties and the state. And so it is 3 p.m. right now. The latest image that I just took at 3:01 p.m. is just capturing what is the improbable light activity that is inconsistent. Again, as I documented inside of this facilitating venue, which is Upland Library in Upland, California, you have the directed sunlight onto the computer monitors at this time of day on January 31st, 2020. Again, there is the absence of light on those monitors, and at that time, when I documented, it was stationary at that place while I was in use of those computers. And again, not only is it not going to occur at any time of the day based on the position of the sun and the position of this building on Euclid, which is north of where the sun is, and the east heading west, it is also inconsistent based on what I just continue to document on a daily basis. So again, that is the presence of light activity, which in and of itself is indicative of the ongoing search that is occurring, and the state remains present in the form of the aircrafts and law enforcement engaged in the stalking conduct. The purpose of the search, the reason why it is indicative is because the purpose of improbable light activity is to engage in that search. And so light is necessarily used. That improbable light activity is coincided with the relevant positioning. And so this is an indication of what is occurring in a ceaseless manner. I am merely giving example after example of its manifestations as I observe them. It's 3:03 p.m. It's February 13, 2020. Okay, it's February 13, 2020. It's 4:30 p.m. and I just took some images of my immediate surroundings, which is where P.O.C. is focused on because this is where I'm sitting. And I also took images of the simultaneous attempt to operate on my phone, which is captured in image. This is speaking to their awareness and their monitoring of my communication device, and I also captured that. It's occurring as I turn the phone on. It's occurring as I use it. As of 4:31 p.m., the images of the third parties that I took and where I'm sitting, where they are hiding behind items in relevant position to me while they're engaging in nonverbal communication, and then they are aware that I'm documenting that nonverbal communication, that the third party that I captured using their communication device, it acts as almost like a motion detector with simultaneity to my movement, the communication device sounds. And again, with regard to NVC, where it's a matter of public corruption, where the government is imminently, it's going to be inherent to that which I'm exposing and documenting, mere repetition of that which is an element in the ongoing system. So as an example, you have the communication device go off, and then it continues to go off and off again when that is not P.O.C. It is P.O.C. for invasion of privacy, however, because that is what they are engaged in, aware of the fact that I'm documenting them. Again, I'm still at the same facilitating venue of Upland Library in Upland, California, and what my images reflect as of this evening, this is occurring at a ceaseless basis, and you have third-party outsiders. So again, these are unknown persons to me. These are strangers. They are engaged in the identical behavioral patterns, so they are surrounding the targeted individual, hiding behind items that are an obstruction to my view when they are engaged in the ongoing search in concert with the government that's flying over and surrounding where I am located at all times. what I was also capturing is the seated location of the third party in particular that's engaging in NVC through the use of their communication device. It is loudly sounding inside of the library. Not only is that uncharacteristic of that which you were supposed to be doing inside of the library, it's disturbing, but it's serving a criminal purpose. But again, the form it takes is just the sound of a phone going off. But even that, I point out as something which is improper inside of a library where it's supposed to be quiet. You're supposed to be courteous to the other patrons who are presumably reading, studying, focusing. I'm using headphones because I'm not going to play a movie out loud. But again, what I'm saying is that the use of the clamor, the use of booming and banging that occurs in the library, the use of a loud a communication device, all of which is occurring in simultaneity to my movement because it is NVC, nonverbal communication. It is an element in the ongoing search that is occurring inside of this venue. And that's just what my images are capturing at this moment. But again, it's occurring at a ceaseless basis. I'm merely giving documentation as to what I'm exposing what's going on inside of this particular one. The elements remain consistent. The elements remain present as well. And so that is relative to the third parties that surround. So surrounding by merely sitting around, and they are literally engaged in surveillance and monitoring, listening very closely to every word I say, listening to my breathing pattern, listening to my eye movement, and that speaks to the NVC, the nonverbal communication. And again, what I document on my phone, which is speaking to that which I'm documenting, is the activity on my phone speaking to that which they are monitoring, which I also captured in addition to the third parties that are engaged in P.O.C. And it is 4:34 p.m. and I'm at Upland Library in Upland, California. An additional note pursuant to the P.O.C. that the state is continuing to engage in, which is criminal conduct, and the third parties that are acting in concert. This is a matter of a state crime. This is public corruption that I'm documenting. But the significance of it with regard to the malicious charges filed against me at the Rancho Cucamonga courthouse is the public defenders are aware. I have sent them a plethora of only a sample of my documentation. It's not even half of what I have, not even representing the full timetable. But what I want to note specifically is that not only do I continue to experience the state's stalking, harassment, and monitoring conduct on the part of the state directly, and the third parties acting on behalf of that state, not only that, but the attorneys that have been quote-unquote appointed to represent me are aware of that. They are unresponsive. They are directly uninterested in that which I have revealed to them via email. They do not only are they not updating me on my case, but they have been essentially tantamount to total silence with regard to that which I have turned over, which is direct evidence of the state's stalking, harassment, and monitoring. And it is not a coincidence, and actually it defies common sense how the state is able to, and these are all the moving parts that I'm saying are connected. The state has engaged in maliciously charging me with a crime and continuing to engage in the crime that they were engaged in when I was subject to that assault, battery, and false arrest and detention. And while I am out and they are engaging in pursuing this case, which is pursuant to the same pattern of conduct by the state, they are continuing to engage in it. So this is what's relevant. But I also want to note specifically that all of this has been directly brought to the attention of those public defenders. And again, it takes the form of a court system. It takes the form of them being attorneys representing my cause. But it is P.O.C. from the beginning to the end. They represent the same state. They are engaged in the same P.O.C. I just wanted to specifically note that it's 4:37 p.m. and I'm at Upland Library, and this is a facilitating venue. All of the elements remain present, consistently present with regard to third-party outsiders, total strangers engaged in identical behavioral patterns that I have broken down with regard to the state-organized system of stalking, harassment, and monitoring. Okay, it's 4:40 p.m., moments after I just made my last couple notes, audible notes. I am still at the facilitating video of the Upland Library on February 13, 2020 at 4:40 p.m. I just took another image of a third party engaged in P.O.C. by virtue of her presence, communication device on purpose, in relevant position communication device on person in relevant position as well, and also light activity in the form of the flashing that is reminiscent of the identical patterns that the third parties inside of Starbucks engaged in. Flashing is light activity. That's an enhanced light tactic that is pursuant to the ongoing search and monitoring. And again, third-party roles are to conduct themselves as though nothing is happening. I'm laughing not because it's funny. I'm laughing because it is so pathetic and criminal and obvious, and so they stand there as though they're just identical to what the third-party patrons did inside of Starbucks and what the employees did too. Flashing, which is noticeable and obvious, and then they oftentimes face the opposite direction or continue engaging in a conversation like nothing is occurring. Again, this speaks to the malice of the system that I'm documenting, but this third party that I captured in the image that was flashing light coming from the third party, again, behind me in relevant position, communication device on person, and enhanced light tactic inside of Upland Library. It's 4:41 p.m. That is the sound of booming in the wall as I operate my phone, a communication device inside of the bathroom, which is P.O.C. And again, right adjacent to the women's restroom is the men's restroom. A male hurried up and ran past me as I entered the bathroom, which is a means of crossing path as I am monitored walking from one end of the building to the other, predictably walking to the restroom as I am subject to ongoing monitoring at all times. I'm also documenting the presence of a different third party. Again, the state is listening to me document their POC, and so they have another person engaged in the identical behavior of occupying the bathroom that they listen to me use pursuant to the ongoing invasion of privacy, monitoring, and stalking. And so this is a third party inside of that stall. Again, I'm subject to invasion of privacy, ceaseless monitoring, and so they listen to me inside of that stall. This speaks to the anticipation, the waiting for my arrival into the bathroom, where they predictably know that I'm going to go because they are always watching and listening to me. And so this is a different third party in order to try to contradict that which they listened to me document earlier when I wrote about the third party, the identical one that was also engaged in harassment at the Ontario Library, who is not a coincidence at this library, this other facilitating venue engaged in analogous conduct, occupying the stall, again, that they listen to me use while I'm inside of the bathroom. And so that's what that is. This is not mere form that it appears of a third parties in the bathroom. This is third party engaged in POC, number one, but also third party engaged in specific harassment and seeking also specifically to try to contradict what they listen to me document. And again, where the state's engaged in stalking and following and surveillance, monitoring, et cetera, and where third parties engaged in those identical behavioral patterns at different places, even different cities and counties, you have a trend that is occurring. And so there is an absence of any coincidence. It is also not an absence of a coincidence to have the third parties in my presence in the bathroom when I'm present, or even when they are not in the bathroom, and then they enter upon my movement and or activity. It is the same POC appearing in different forms. This particular one is an attempt to try to contradict what they, again, listen to me, aware of what I document. The state is literally listening to me write on paper, seeking out the ways in which I'm documenting, listening to me when I narrate verbally any documentation. And so it is futile because there is way too much of a pattern that exists. I am just showing what this facilitating venue is up to today, February 13, 2020, inside of the bathroom. This is POC for the ongoing monitoring to which invasion of privacy is necessary. And again, all elements remain present on the part of third parties, on the part of the state. It is 4:49 p.m. inside of the bathroom. Okay, it's 5:01 p.m. and upon my exit of Upland Library and simultaneous to my using my communication device right now, that's a third party that just crossed paths on a bike. That's third party conduct. What I took images of though is the presence of Ontario PD. This is upon my exit. And again, the cloud paths are in the sky. That is mentioning specific to the airplanes that are surrounding the library, but they were audibly heard flying over as well as the sirens. But POC is in the following form. The law enforcement, that's Upland PD, that crossed paths, initiated a scene, so that's stopping someone. This is in the form of a traffic stop. The lights on the vehicle are going to be turned on when you have the police engaging in, quote-unquote, stopping a citizen for a traffic stop, for example. That's light activity. This is the form that the P.O.C. takes. It is in relevant positioning right up the block from where I stand outside of the library upon my exit. This is not coincidental. What I also took pictures of is the stationary traffic at the traffic light. These are third parties engaged in relevant positioning by virtue of their presence on the road as they merely drive past. This is the search that is occurring in concert with that state. So this is aircraft, this is law enforcement, and these are third parties engaged in concerted conduct, hence public corruption. And so I'm also looking at the corner of Arrow and Euclid, where I'm at, third parties, the one that passed by me in relevant position on the sidewalk with his bike on a communication device, another third party at the corner of the opposite library, feet behind that third party on a communication device. The traffic that is at a standstill, again, the state controls the traffic lights, and that is a relevant positioning of third parties in their vehicles crossing path as they drive past. Under the guise of sitting at the bus stop, those are third parties engaged in relevant positioning. The light activity by vehicles that stop on the side of the road, turning on their emergencies or turning on their blinkers, that's light activity and relevant positioning, all of which I am actively observing right now. Across the street on the opposite side of Euclid is another police vehicle with the lights on the car. That is light activity. It is not a coincidence that I have police, Upland police, on opposite sides of me, on both sides of Euclid. And this is light activity. This is pursuant to the search. This is P.O.C. for state organized stalking and harassment. It's not a coincidence that they are present as I exit, as I stand outside of the library, and inside I documented the ongoing P.O.C. on the part of third parties inside of the library, the sound of sirens driving outside of the library while I'm in operation of a communication device. Again, the stalking conduct of the state en route to the facilitating venue, two helicopters while I was walking to the library. This is the state organized system, and it is 5:04 p.m. And I also captured again the state pursuant to that which I'm documenting now, seeking to interrupt my documentary purposes, which I captured on the screen of the phone. This is pursuant to the ongoing monitoring that the state's engaged in, and this is what it looks like under the form. The state engages in it by creating a scene. That is, though, fulfilling the very elements of the state organized system. That's light activity on their car communication device in the car and on their persons, third parties surrounding on communication devices in the form of whatever that it may look like on the outside, but it is form versus substance, what it looks like on the outside versus what is actually the substance of what they are doing. And this is what I'm exposing. This is the significance of the malicious charges brought against me, where those officers, Knighton and Keys, were engaged in criminal P.O.C. And lied on the stand. This is not the first case that happened, and this is what is continuing to happen while that case is pending, while the attorneys that I have that are supposedly appointed to represent me are aware. I continue to provide them information about what I'm experiencing on a day-to-day basis, and the state is continuing to engage in stalking conduct while they charge me with a false charge while I was documenting them engaged in this very conduct of stalking and harassment and monitoring. It's February 13th again, it's 5:05 p.m., and this is upon my exit of Upland Library, a facilitating venue. Okay, that's an airplane flying over. This is a third party crossing path right now. License plate 8 Frank Xavier, K as in Kinko's, 854. What I am noting is my arrival at FERN and G. Back to the car where I remain, and as I've just shown in this form of documentation, the airplanes followed me all the way there, and at the time I just turned this phone on, and one of the airplanes of the many that continued to follow and fly over where I'm at and fly over me just engaged in directly flying over FERN. And again, what's clearly ridiculous about the conduct is the planes stay stationary in the sky, and then they move from their stationary place. They remain they keep a static presence, and then they audibly fly over FERN. That's pursuant to the search. That's them coming closer. That's them making themselves audibly perceived in doing so. And so that's a sample of that. And what you have right now is a third party that just made a U-turn in front of G and FERN where I'm at, and so that's an alternative to them driving past, and also to seek to avoid getting a license plate. state. And again, I'm dealing with the state that's listening to me document their criminal conduct. And so typically what happens is they'll have another third party engage in driving past in order to try to contradict that, which I just stated. But that's what that was. That was a U-turn directly in front, and that's light activity through the use of the headlights, making a U-turn not in the center of the street, but on the at the sidewalk in order for those headlights to run across my person. That is pursuant to the search. From Upland Library, where I documented the presence of the Upland police at both sides of me on Euclid, so that's at north and south, where they were engaged in P.O.C. Their police lights on, third parties surrounding in traffic and on bike and on foot, engaged in the search. That's P.O.C. That's what law enforcement does. That's what the airplanes are engaged in doing, and that is what I continue to document. The planes follow, including the helicopters that I documented walking down Euclid back to this car from the library. Upland Library is a facilitating venue. P.O.C. underway the entire time that I'm there, and that hasn't changed. I'm just documenting the ongoing occurrence of the state's system of stalking, harassment, and monitoring to date, February 13th, 2020. It is currently 6:12 p.m., and I just arrived back at the car, and again, that's direct evidence of the planes flying over. This is targeted conduct. Upon making a purchase after leaving Upland Library, you see a quote-unquote commercial looking plane flying directly in front of the entrance as I walk out of it. Again, third parties surrounding on ground, law enforcement creeping around, making themselves visual as I did outside of Upland Library, but they are engaged in stalking, driving around the back streets, staying in corners, remaining within my physical location, in the proximity of my physical location. That's through the state, the law enforcement, and the aircrafts. And so that is just one plane that was heard. I'm currently looking at airplanes that remain present. I just got through documenting a flurry of third parties at the RITE parking lot. Again, that's just a sample of what's occurring on a ceaseless basis at every place and at all times. Third parties engage in relevant positioning, using their hazard lights, merely driving by and the headlights running across your person, walking past the car with the headlights on, using their car alarms in order to cause their headlights to blink. These are all forms of the same P.O.C. And so that's what I showed at the RITE parking lot. And meanwhile, the airplanes were literally surrounding the airspace around that parking lot as I stood there writing down license plates. So that is directly related to and highly relevant, directly relevant to the state organized system of stalking and harassment. And then to complete it with the sound of the airplanes, which again remain present. They don't stop doing what they're doing. They continue to follow. That is statutorily described as stalking. They remain where I remain inside of this vehicle. Flying over is again evidence of that. Remaining stationary in the sky, flying over right now as I speak, listening to every word that I utter, listening to my written documentation, again, pursuant to their theft of my property, their unlawful seizure and retention of that property, studied my handwriting, literally listening to the words that I write down on paper, and that is also this is FERN and G right now, where I'm documenting the ongoing airplane activity, the surrounding third parties, both on foot and in vehicle, and those third parties that remain planted in their residences surrounding me on this street, and also inside their cars as third parties remain active throughout the entire time that I'm inside of the car. And again, nonverbal communication is through the use of, you're outdoors, so you can use anything. You can use closing a gate, closing a door, closing their car doors. Typically they're using their cars, and that is specifically with the light. The same third parties that are engaged in concerted activity with the state are the same ones that are directing light in an abnormal fashion. That is the same P.O.C. with the improbable light activity. That is pursuant to the ongoing search for electronic information residing in a communication device. And so that is what they are seeking out. And again, as I turn this communication device on, the state is engaged in the same conduct of seeking to interrupt that which I document on this phone. And that is obvious on the screen of the phone. And so this is another third party engaged in crossing paths while I'm on this phone, and that license plate is 6 Stanley Tom U as in utter 596. No third party that is coming within my path is engaging in any random conduct. This is a targeted effort on the part of the state. The people of the state of California are engaged in that concerted activity. What they are engaged in when they are walking past, driving past, etc., is called crossing path. That is relevant positioning, and that is coincided with light activity. This is pursuant to a search for electronic information. And again, you have light activity at the opposite end of the street right now. That's through the form of a vehicle with blinking headlights. That is called light activity. Light is satisfied, though, by virtue of it being present. They engage in enhanced light tactics, however. Blinking of light, flashing of light, and that's been on their vehicles, that's been on buildings, and that's been on their person too, their communication devices. And so what I am documenting to date as I return to the car is stalking from the vehicle this morning, 2 helicopters en route to the library, and a police officer engaging in crossing path. And then upon my exit of that library, 2 Upland police on both sides of the street, both my left and right, engaged in P.O.C, airplanes flying over, and a helicopter flying essentially next to me, flying over me, en route the entire time I'm walking down the street, down Euclid, back toward this vehicle from Upland, California to Ontario, California. That right there is from one city to another. But even if I went from one block to another, that is P.O.C. And it is February 13, 2020. It's 6:17 p.m. and I remain outside in the vehicle at FERN and G. It is 6:24 p.m. That is the sound of a car horn that occurs in simultaneity to my activity on a communication device. That's an element. That third party is in relevant positioning, listening very closely to what I'm doing. You have another third party that was waiting around the corner, the same one that I've documented engaged in P.O.C. He's now parking on the opposite side of the street. That is also pursuant to my documenting his engaging in the search by shining his headlights on my bags and on my person as he parked. His timing is of appearing at the time that I'm engaged in a communication device is not only not a coincidence, but it is also designed to try to contradict that which they listened to me document about the P.O.C. Last night and the night before that. He engaged in the same conduct of appearing at the same time. Again, I arrived at the car at different times, but he twice, 2 days in a row, appeared at the same time that I did. Headlights on my person, headlights on my belongings, and exits the car as he parks and gets out. Now that takes on the form of someone just parking on the street. That is P.O.C. Again, this is why all other elements remain present, especially the airplanes that are flying above and remaining where I remain. What I also got was the presence of a third party at the opposite end of the street. This is what I'm describing as the search. So as third parties are engaged in crossing paths at the north side at FERN and G, that is driving west and east at G Street, where I'm standing outside inside of the car. That's crossing path. You also have the light activity at the opposite end of the street. Now that's been marked by flashing lights on vehicles. That's been marked by flashing lights on buildings, flashing lights on private residences. And again, that is what I capture that third party engaged in. And immediately as I step into the street, again, they are aware of my documenting them. That third party moved from remaining stationary in the street to immediately moving their vehicle and driving forward. That is the guise under which they engage in P.O.C. That was a blatant example of it, and the helicopter flying over and the airplane sounding their engines is added proof to that which I continue to document. None of these are coincidences. This other third party also appeared. This is relevant positioning. What they are concerned with is not only the fact that I'm documenting criminal conduct, but they are obsessively concerned with monitoring my devices and any ways in which I may be exposing them on some other way that they are unaware of. So this is why I was arrested, by the way. This is why I was stripped of my clothes and placed into a freezing cold cell and my shoes. This is why I was in that cell at West Valley Detention Center after forcefully and brutally removing my clothes, where I was already injured by Officer Knighton and Keys. And that was in front of the facilitating venue of 7-Eleven on January 13, 2020, and that was pursuant to their obsessive concern with my ways in which I document their conduct in some manner that they may not be aware of. That was the whole purpose of that. It is pursuant to the ongoing search and monitoring. As I use this communication device, I'm looking just like I took a picture of the planes that remain stationary above me. I'm looking straight forward ahead. I'm standing at FERN and G, and I'm looking east, and there is a airplane that is stationary in the sky, and this is what I mean by they maintain a presence, and they audibly fly over as well. Anyway, this is a prime example of what is occurring on a ceaseless basis, and third-party conduct is also unquestionable. The facts that I am speaking to, the elements remaining consistently present, the light activity, the stalking conduct of the third parties that surround the targeted individual here on the ground everywhere that I go, and the state that surrounds via law enforcement, and by the state in the aircrafts that give me a prime example of what they're engaged in, flying over. Again, the timing with which they are doing that is pursuant to their concern that I am documenting them in some other way. That was the monitoring of my devices when they were flying over so close and so loudly. That is why they do so, besides the fact that they are obsessive, perverted, and criminal. It is 6:29 p.m. I'm at FERN and G, and P.O.C. continues to be underway. That is a prime example of a third party on foot engaging in crossing paths. They engage in crossing path at one end, like I said, and that third party I captured in that image, seated at the other side of the street. That's light activity. That's the search right here occurring on the street as I stand outside. That's all. 6 RVP, Robert Victor Paul 425 was the license of that third party captured at the opposite end of FERN and G. So they were at closest to FERN and F as in Frank, while I'm up here at FERN and G, providing added light while the search is occurring. Airplanes flying over and crossing paths occurring up here toward me. So that is another means, another iteration of the same search, and that is the license plate of that third party. 6 RVP 425. 6:34 p.m. That's an image of the helicopter. That is what I am describing as those that fly around the perimeter. This is a third-party crossing path as I use my phone. That is 37481 Zebra 1. Again, you've got a consistency here. The crossing path here on the ground around me in conjunction with the helicopter or the airplanes that are flying over. The light activity is accomplished by the passing of the headlights on that vehicle that's crossing path. So that is the combination of those elements in addition to any other added light activity. But that is an image of the helicopter. They continue to remain present. They do not cease flying over and remaining present, flying over as they monitor what I'm doing. So as of right now, that was a helicopter flying over 320 Neighborhood Partnership Housing Services, Inc. That is around the perimeter of my physical location, circling around. They also engage in flying directly over this vehicle, flying directly over the street. That in particular was the helicopter. You can also hear another aircraft. That is not the helicopter, though. The helicopter has a distinct sound, but that is to show that they use an array of aircrafts, and so the commercial planes, the helicopters, the different helicopters, and the different aircrafts that I've documented also, and that I've seen, the small white ones that are harder to see higher up in the sky. They typically fly higher in elevation. They do not engage in the flying lower down on the ground. Those are typically the government planes that have the as I've coined them, the blinking lights on them. Those are the ones that also appeared in Diamond Bar in 2018 when there were over a dozen of them flying directly above me at the public park where I was, and that was the formal introduction to the state stalking via aircraft. And to date, February 13, 2020, they continue to engage in such conduct. Again, that's just denoting the presence of the helicopter. 5 BJV 289. That is the license plate of a third party that just crossed path. Also, the sound of plane engines continues. This is to my movement. As I move, a third party crosses path by driving directly down the street that is crossing over my person and belongings with the headlights. This is also coincided with the sound of sirens that just occurred at 6:41 p.m. And this is the presence of all elements. And this is, again, while I am outside at the car at FERN and G. So this is pursuant to very close monitoring, and so listening to me inside of the car, this is what is occurring as well. Cars systematically engaging and driving by. This is a form that the search takes, and necessarily so, you're outside. So what's going to be occurring outside? Walking, riding bikes, driving past. And so this is a form that the system takes outside. They are engaged in, but you're not going to look at the form, you're going to look at the consistency of the elements as they exist. The third parties are engaging in such crossing path at the moment that I engage in movement, activity, or any change thereof. That's how I've defined that element, and it is consistently satisfied by third parties that are engaging in such crossing path. The mere repetition of that conduct is going to be necessary. People are going to drive anyway. That is in no way any distinction from the identification of the P.O.C. And it is also coincided with the ongoing stalking and surveillance and monitoring of the state directly through law enforcement and through aircraft. And so this is the connection to that which I continue to document pursuant to the people of the state of California engaged in concerted activity with that state. And this is the state organized system of stalking and harassment. It's 6:43 p.m. And that last license plate was of a third party that crossed path. The timing that it occurs at, that is upon my movement, upon my gesturing, that they are closely listening to. I am subject to ongoing monitoring and expansive invasion of privacy. And so they listen to literally my eye movements. They listen to, if I focus on something, you've got the sound of a car horn or a closed door or the train in the background that's also used as a means of nonverbal communication, indicative of my movement, activity, or any change thereof. So this is the consistency of the elements, and that is the identification of the P.O.C. in any form that it takes. It's February 13, 2020, 6:44 p.m., and I'm outside at the car at FERN G, where the P.O.C. is ceaselessly underway. As you have third-party outsiders, again, these are strangers engaging in identical behavioral patterns, and this is indicative of what is going on at all places and all times where the targeted individual is subject to the state's stalking and ongoing monitoring. It is 6:44 p.m. So what I want to note at 6:47 p.m., this goes to the ongoing monitoring and the invasion of privacy, them listening to me document, and their hostility and aggression toward it. It's at 6:47, as I load my belongings into the car, what you have, as I'm documenting with regard to third parties that are engaged in deliberate conduct by crossing paths, that is by driving by closely, and third parties that are driving by on G Street, but the third party is engaging coming closer and crossing path when they drive north and south on FERN. And so what coincided, again, this is the element coinciding with my activity getting inside of the car, where the blankets are covering the windows, and so this speaks to their listening to me, their hostility to my documentation of their criminal conduct. These same third parties that I am speaking are engaging in relevant positioning. As they drive past, what you have is the improbable light activity. As the headlights are on the front of the car, and they're driving north and south, that's parallel to the position that this car is parked on the street. You have the well, it's not headlights, it's directed light into the car that's horizontally through the very front portion of the windows along the passenger door. That's as I observe it, and this is coincided with the airplane that flew over the street as well. And this is as I got inside of the car, as I closed the door, as I put my belongings inside. And so this is also speaking to not only the presence of all elements, but the light activity that is directed, targeted conduct by the third parties that are engaged in such relevant positioning as I have documented. They are the ones that are directing light into the car and in probable manners, not only on the driver, through the driver's side window, the very front portion of that window, which is not going to result in any headlight driving north and south parallel to this car that's parked on the side of the road. You have horizontal white light shooting across the passenger side. That's light activity pursuant to a search for electronic information. That's what that is. It is improbable, and it is also coincided with their driving past. So it's under the form of a car driving past. But again, that is coincided with the rest of the elements. You've got the state flying over. You have the improbable activity of that light inside of the car. That's pursuant to a search. It's not going to result from any headlights on a vehicle. It's shooting horizontally through the car, and it is also active as it is directed inside of the car. That, I just want to note, occurred as I got inside the car and closed the door, the second that I closed the door. So that is the state engaged in that conduct. And again, so you have an expansion invasion of privacy. You have the state that's listening to me document its conduct, and so this is what is adding added context to what they are engaged in, listening to the targeted individual document their criminal conduct. listening to the notes that I make about their criminal conduct. So it's 6:50 p.m. and I am inside of the car, and I just wanted to make that note as I got in. That's immediately what happened. And I am at FERN NG. 6:55 p.m. That is airplane, another sample. The second since I've gotten back in the car and finished that last note, as they are listening to me inside of the car, and a flurry of third parties drove directly past. Again, it's a reaction to what they're listening to me document, and so you have the third parties, again, that I document engage in relevant positioning, directing light into the car in an unnatural manner and probable manner, which speaks to light activity, which is pursuant to the search. That is the reason why such light activity occurs. That is what immediately followed. They're listening to me document their conduct, and so that speaks to the necessary invasion of privacy. That is necessary when you are engaged in stalking, harassment, and monitoring. I am just showing the ways in which it is evident. The third parties engaged in multiple third parties driving past, and a lot of light being directed into the car. That's immediately following them listening to me, again, make that audible note. That they listened to me document about their P.O.C. At 6:56 p.m. and that was the ongoing chorus of the airplanes flying directly over the street at FERN and G, flying directly over FERN, and that is directly in front of this car. So those are the planes that continue to fly over at 6:56 p.m. And they are doing so as I'm digging in my bags. This is what they continue to engage in as I make any movement, engage in any activity. This is pursuant to the ongoing monitoring. 6:57 p.m. It is 7:10 p.m. and sitting in the car as I undress, the third parties engage in a heightened level of driving past and directing light into the car and doing so. And again, that is light traveling horizontally, whereas they are traveling straight, and the headlights would be headed forward, not headed east or west. Specifically, when a vehicle is going to drive past this vehicle, headed, let's say, for example, on FERN, because I'm on FERN, facing south. So if a vehicle is going to drive south, the headlights are headed forward. There is no spreading of light, and there certainly is no direction of horizontal concentrated white light that's going to shoot inside of the car. Again, that's directed light activity, and that is by the same third parties that are engaged in relevant positioning that is crossing path, and that is what occurred between 6:55 and 7:10 p.m. right now as I was inside of the car, as they are listening to me undress. So they engage in directing light into the car, and that is also based on their knowledge of what I'm doing. And so when you follow that thought all the way through, this is, she's undressed. She's not going to get out the car and, for example, take a picture or write down their license plate. So this is third parties aware of what I'm doing, engaging in the light activity while the planes continue to fly over successively, and the third parties cross path and direct light. That's light activity. That is a half step above the ordinary light element. So light satisfies the element period, but light activity is the directed of light, the enhanced light tactics, the improbable light activity, and that is a concentrated search for electronic information. And this is, again, the same third parties that remain planted in their cars, engaging in nonverbal communication, and with their cars, with their horns, with their engines, with their stereos, with their gates, with the residential doors. You can engage in NVC through any means, really. It's typically, basically, any sound that is occurring with simultaneity to my movement and or activity. And that in and of itself is also indicative of the ongoing search. The light activity in and of itself is indicative of the ongoing search because of the identical pattern with which it continues to occur. And so I just want to note that that is the state. The third parties are engaged in state action. So what they are engaging in is an unlawful search, invasion of privacy, surveillance, and monitoring in concert with the state that's stalking and harassing and monitoring. So that's what occurred while I was inside of the car and changing my clothes, undressed, as they are listening to that and engaging in that activity. And so that's what I want to know. It's 7:13 p.m. right now. That was from 6:55 p.m. to 7:11 p.m. And I just want to make this additional note based on that. It's I'm outside in the vehicle at FERN and G, and so the state listens to me document the criminal conduct, and what the surrounding circumstances remain highly relevant to what I continue to document. The illegal assault and battery, arrest and detention that occurred on January 13th. This is a case that was followed by malicious charge of resistance of an illegal arrest. And so that charge, that case is still pending. And so the state, what you have is the state engaging in criminal conduct and an American citizen documenting that criminal conduct and then being subject to basically an attack by the state of California because of that, because of their awareness that I am confronting their criminal conduct. And so this case, while they are bringing it against me, they are continuing to engage in that criminal conduct. And so this speaks to the complicity of the court itself, the complicity of these alleged attorneys themselves, as I have already stated, because I experienced it personally in the workforce. But I've also stated in my written documentation in my series of encounters with law enforcement already that it is a corrupt system comprehensively, and this is what it is. This is a prime example of that. The state continuing to date at this very moment, continuing to engage in criminal conduct while a criminal case is pending against me for confronting them for engaging in that criminal conduct. And so this is very relevant with regard to what I continue to document and the entirety of the case in and of itself, as far as what the state of California is actually engaged in and what are the surrounding factual circumstances as they are engaged in that conduct. Every word that I'm uttering, they are listening to right now. Again, as I undress, as I use the bathroom, bodily functions, eye movement, breathing patterns, listening to everything, which again is highly likely when the state is engaged in stalking via aircraft. And so where they are not able to dismiss my claims by claiming that I have some mental issue, which is the design of the system, it's designed to do that. This is not an option here. So they prosecute you in the courts while they engage in the criminal conduct in the very courthouse itself. And so with regard to the court's actions, it takes on a legal context. While they are engaged in the P.O.C., have documented the P.O.C. in the Rancho Cucamonga courthouse. Well, every action that they take, every inaction that they take, every word that they utter takes on a legal, it has a legal, it is legally analyzed, under the theory of what is occurring. And so that is what's relevant with regard, and this is what is so amazing about the entirety of the case. So it's 7:16 p.m., and that is another airplane that's flying over FERN right now. And again, this is a residential area, and you have very high airplane and helicopter activity. You have it would seem like it's like paparazzi inside of this vehicle with regard to the third parties engaged in concerted conduct. They are acting on behalf of the state. So their actions, that is state action. This is hence the term third parties, hence the term servants under the legal theory with regard to the state's liability for such tortious and criminal conduct. It's February 13, 2020, and it's 7:16 p.m. And again, the public defenders are very well aware, as they patently ignore that which I have presented to them, which is relevant to what Knighton and Keys were engaged in and what the state continues to engage in at this very moment, which is not a secret. It is put in their face, and they are inactive. And so that's what I want to show, that it is a comprehensively corrupt system entirely from the top down, and that is in conformity with everything that I have documented from the beginning, where the law enforcement started implying that threat by maintaining an ubiquitous presence everywhere that I am, to the arrival of the airplanes, to my continuing to systematically document, to encountering law enforcement, which resulted in unlawful searches, detentions, assault and battery, unlawful detention for no reason whatsoever other than to engage in harassment pursuant to their knowledge that I am actively confronting their criminal conduct. So at 7:17 p.m. And the P.O.C. is that they listen to me document and then they continue to engage in it. It is a direct reaction to that which they are listening to me document about them. And so I have stated that. I have labored that point already. And I'm just noting that today, at this moment, at 7:18, it continues. So actually tomorrow, February 14th, I'm going to go to that criminal courthouse and continue to deal with this case that the state brought against me pursuant to its criminal conduct. And that is the reality of the situation. It's February 13, 2020, 7:18 p.m.